For today's video, we are making our way over to India, where we will be talking about a creepy witch that knocks on your door in the middle of the night. If you answer, you will succumb to her evil wrath.
Or even a police officer who may have accidentally given a ghost a ride in his car. Let's jump right in. Starting off in our number 10 spot. In the small town of SALKIA in 1992, a police officer was getting off of his long shift around midnight. He was ready to head home after a long day and exited the police station to see his driver sitting there waiting for him. He got into the passenger side front seat and the two began their drive home. The roads were very empty this night and there were barely any other people around, but suddenly they saw a human figure in the distance that ended up being a woman who was asking for help. The two stopped the car and the police officer asked if she needed a ride. The driver was very superstitious and wasn't comfortable with the woman entering the car, but he figured that if he didn't look at her and with the police officer there, that everything should be fine. The police officer had a hard time seeing her clearly because it was dark, but the most noticeable thing about her was her beautiful sparkling red sari and all of her amazing gold jewelry. They asked where she was going to and the woman explained that she was trying to get to the nearby temple. As they drove on, the police officer began to doze off since he was so tired from his long shift, but was suddenly awoken by the screeching from the brakes of the car. When he opened his eyes, he realized that they had arrived at the temple and the driver asked the police officer if he could let the woman know that they had arrived, but when the police officer turned around, there was no one in the back seat and all the windows were closed with the car doors locked from inside.
And at number 9 we have MAHAL. But if you guys are liking this video so far, then come on, you guys know the drill. Make sure to give it a big thumbs up because it really helps us out. In India, the MAHAL is known as a light-emitting entity, or as its name translates to, it's also known as the face scratcher. Now this story all started off as a tale to scare children, until in 2002 when it seemed to come to life. During this time, several villagers reported seeing a UFO beam of light. When they got close to it, it scratched them. Others were left with bruises on their face and arms. Some say it felt like a hawk-like metal claw on their skin. People were so spooked that temples held prayers, while other villagers stayed up at night around bonfires with weapons, just waiting for it. Now, the stories of the face scratcher are continually shared. To this day, they don't know exactly what happened back in 2002.
In our number 8 spot, we have the story of the town of KULDHARA. This town has been abandoned since 1825 and no one really knows why, but there are some theories. There are structures in the village that date all the way back to the 13th century when it was once a very lively village. Local lore says that 1,000 people who lived in the village just vanished into thin air one day. There's no one who knows why they left and where they all ended up, and some of the theories start with people believing that the wells were poisoned. Others believe that a ruler was raising the taxes for the diminishing water supply, but this still doesn't explain how everyone just vanished. One night, the Indian Paranormal Society spent a night there and reported a ton of paranormal activity, such as disembodied whispers, screams, and other noises. No one has ever tried to settle there since its abandonment because there is a legend that the village chief cursed the land, and if you try and live there, you will die.
Making our way down the list at number 7, we have NALE or NALE. I'm sorry, I really don't know how to pronounce it. In the 90s, kids in Bangalore were spooked about stories of a witch who stalks the streets at night knocking on doors of houses. As she does this, she will use the voice of a loved one, usually their mother, to trick the owners into opening the doors. But if you answer the door, then you will die. Even if you manage to survive from her that night, you will mysteriously die the next day. In order to avoid encountering her, people would write NALE on the door, which means come tomorrow. The witch would then see this sign and come again tomorrow to try and kill you. But as long as the words were still written on the door, you were safe from her. It's just like a big circle. It's like, oh, I'll come tomorrow. Oh, I'll come tomorrow. Oh, okay, I'll keep coming tomorrow. And then she just never gets you. So it's good.
In our number 6 spot today, we have the story of Dr. L. Dr. L was a doctor in a small town in South India, and one night after closing up his clinic, he was asleep at home. There was a knock on his door, and when the doctor's grandmother opened it, she saw a man who explained that his wife, who was pregnant, desperately needed the doctor's help. The grandmother didn't want to wake Dr. L, but the man was very persistent. When Dr. L woke up, he packed his medical bag and headed off with the stranger. There weren't a lot of streetlights in the area, so it was fairly dark as Dr. L followed this this man home. The man kept apologizing for waking up the doctor, but explained that he had no other choice. When the stranger went to head through a graveyard, Dr. L understandably hesitated, but ultimately followed him through. In the graveyard, the two approached a lamppost that gave Dr. L a much better view of this stranger, and this is when he realized that the stranger had no face, and he was just clothes hanging in the air. He of course freaked out and said that he had forgotten some equipment and needed to go home to get it. Luckily, Dr. L was able to make it home, very frightened but safe. The next day, Dr. L went to the mayor's office to try and explain to him why he should be installing more streetlights without giving away exactly what he had seen the night before. After vaguely explaining the story to the mayor then explained how lucky the doctor was because there had been 3 doctors who previously went missing under those exact same circumstances. They got lured out at night by an emergency and were never seen again. Who was this invisible ghost?
We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with MALCHA Mahal. Legend goes that this place is haunted. There have been a number of stories of people going in and never making it out alive, especially a number of journalists went missing exploring this place. Now, according to local legend, the MALCHA Mahal was given to Princess Mahal by the government. She lived there with her 2 kids and dogs. Yet the place was run down, infested with bugs, and had no running water or electricity. How they managed to survive in there, isolated from others, still remains a mystery. But eventually, the princess couldn't take living there anymore and took her own life. She did this by swallowing crushed diamonds. Her kids went on living without her. They would only wear black robes and could be seen occasionally going out to get food or supplies. In fact, for several years, the place was guarded and any trespassers would be shot down. After their death, the palace was open to the public and is now said to be haunted by the souls that died there. So be careful. You may enter the place no problem, but you may not make it out alive.
In our number 4 spot, we have this story about a writer. A writer decided to move into his grandparents' house a few years after they had passed in order to have some time alone and be able to get some writing done. The house was a huge but very old mansion, and it certainly needed more people tending to it than just this one man, and he found himself so distracted by the repairs that the house needed, so he began to go on walks to try and get his writing ideas flowing. His favorite route took him through the edge of the forest and then out to a country road that landed right in the middle of 2 cemeteries. When he continued on this country road, it would take him to a little town where he could get food and drinks, but at night he said the town had a strange feeling, like he should avoid it. One night the writer couldn't sleep around 2 AM, so he decided to take his walk. It had rained and the smell of the fresh earth was very invigorating, and he ended up getting caught up in his own thoughts instead of being on the lookout. He should have realized that there were no sounds of birds or insects or any kind of animal, but he was totally distracted. When he got to the country road, he was almost at the little town when he thought that he should head back home. This is when he saw a lantern bobbing up and down and decided to let the man who was holding it fall into step with him. The writer had a flashlight on, so the man put out his lantern, but the writer wasn't exactly sure if he could see the man, although he could definitely hear him. The two struck up a conversation, but eventually the writer began to get a bad feeling. He stopped to light a cigarette, and he realized he couldn't hear the other man's footsteps. The writer asked if the man was okay, and the man replied, "You have narrowly escaped." The writer sprinted back to his house where he was finally safe. When he told the story to other people in the town, they explained that it must have been an apparition. Since they are repelled by warmth and light, the fact that he lit his cigarette might have saved him that night.
In our 3rd spot, we have the Lady in White. Sanjay is a beautiful but haunted city forest area in Delhi, India. Among the wildlife and nature, apparently there are a lot of ghosts that like to lurk there. In particular, a lady in white. On a bunch of different occasions, a number of visitors have seen this lady. Story goes that she likes to stand and just stare at people passing by. But it doesn't seem like she wants to cause harm, so that's good. She's not the only ghost in that area though. Others have heard ghostly sounds of a baby crying and a girl laughing. Others have felt like they were being watched, or even have felt a cold presence by them. It's believed that this area is haunted because there's a bunch of unmarked grave sites in that area. In fact, stories of the area spook so many people that there's actually a notice board there that warns people not to stay there after dark.
In our number 2 spot today, we have the story of the Morgan House. The Morgan House is a very popular tourist development in Kalimpong. Its beauty draws a lot of people to the present-day Heritage Hotel. Back in its day, it used to see a lot of large, elegant parties since the beautiful wood and stone structures are the perfect backdrop. But it is now known as a haunted hotel. It is said that the spirit of Lady Morgan never left the house. It was built specifically for Lady Morgan and her husband to get married, but after she died a premature death, Mr. Morgan had to leave the house. The story goes that Lady Morgan was actually tortured by her husband before her death, so it is said that her ghost is rightfully very unhappy. People have reported being able to hear high-heeled shoes tapping in the corridor when no one is around.
And in our number 1 spot, we have DUMAS Beach. This is said to be one of the most haunted places in India. Story goes that the black sand beach was an ancient burial ground, and so spirits still roam there throughout the day and especially during the night. In fact, it's believed that the sand on the beach is black because of the amount of ash created by burning the dead there. The ash then mixed with the white sand and turned the whole beach dark, meaning that a lot of bodies got burned and buried there. One story of the area that's really creepy is this one. One day a group of friends went to the beach at night to see if it truly was haunted. The whole time while they were there, they felt like something was watching them and they got really creeped out. So they took a bunch of photos and then left. Upon reviewing the photos, they realized that they captured tons of orbs, and in one photo, they captured a shadowy figure right behind one of the friends. Very creepy. Alright guys, let's move right along to our comment shoutout portion. We'll be shouting out comments from our other collab, Top 10 Creepy Russian Bedtime Stories. Emma commented, Lindsay reminds me of Annabeth Chase and Olivia reminds me of Hermione Granger. Yes. You're both so nice and intelligent and beautiful. Do you like Harry Potter?
Emma, I love you!
Right? That's what I'm saying. Literally, Percy Jackson and Harry Potter, my favorite movies, yes, and books.
Mwah.
So good. Love that comment.
Angerson Lopez says, shout out to Lindsay and Olivia and the rest of the most amazing top 10 crew. Also, wow.
Aubrey Jackson commented, they seem like the perfect duo. It's because we are. We need a collab name. I was thinking like Linz and Liv. Do you go by Liv?
Ooh, I will for the purpose of that.
Linz and Liv, back at it again.
Kinda cute.
Right?
Trademark, you heard it here first. Haneen Qureshi says, I would like to get a shout out as a Christmas gift.
There you go.
Well,
Merry Christmas.
Shout out to you, Haneen.
There you go. Alright guys, that's all the comments we're showing out for today's video. Make sure to comment something down below for a chance to be featured in our next comment shout out. And as always, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to Most Amazing Top 10 for more amazing videos. I've been your host, Dr. L.
I'm Olivia Kozlowski.
I'll see you when I see you.